Summary of the film CLARCK. The story begins with CLARCK, a dynamic teacher, unaware of what will now be his profession, and someone who has a great facility for communicating and getting along with young people, who arrives as a suicide at school in North Carolina. After 4 years after becoming a teacher at school, he decides to go to New York to teach at public school called Harlem. Shortly after spending all of his money, he decides to work at a charter themed restaurant and thereby earn a little more money. There he meets Marisa, for whom he feels a certain attraction and with whom he establishes a beautiful friendship. Upon arriving at school after separating from his parents, who live in North Carolina, he meets a teacher fighting with one of his students and who later resigns from school. This he talks with the director, being able to take his place and asks him to take over the worst course in New York. After insisting, the director proposes that the family assign the course if the students manage to obtain good grades, to which he accepts. During the 2 days he had left before starting work at the school, he spent time visiting those who would later become his students. First of all, I visit Julio Vasquez, a rebellious and troublesome boy. He places bets on the new teachers at the school and how long they will last without giving up, and he is used to stealing things from his mother. He comes home and talks to his mother, who shows a beige interest in him. He then visits Badriya, a girl from India who loves to read and who suffers from verbal abuse by her parents. Later, he visited Shamika Wallace, a child 12 years old, girl who dedicated little time to her studies and dedicated most of her time to taking care of her three younger siblings. She has problems mostly with expressing her emotions and feelings. She, her mother shows little interest in her daughter's study and later asks him to withdraw from her. She arrives on Monday and within the first day at her new job. Upon reaching the classroom, he stays at the door until all of her students enter. After that, he enters the classroom, observes the bad discipline of his students, but begins by introducing himself as the new teacher and later explains the new rules in the classroom. His first rule is that everyone in the classroom is a family. There he meets Taishao Michael, a boy unable to join the room and who finds it difficult to express himself. He sits at the end of the room and initially shows little interest in his classes. He likes art and makes graffiti. He has a lot of anger stored in himself, and when he gets angry, he tends to be excessively aggressive, hitting the things. It's one of his ways of channeling his anger, and graffiti help him relax. The first thought is not easy, and when he goes out to recess, he observes the degree of honor going out in line and the degree of him making a mess when he goes out and not leaving him. He observes that some students have spray painted his car. On the second day, he intends to give more attention to change the lives of his students and begins with the appearance of the room, painting it, to which Mr. Turner, a man who does not trust Mr. Clark, unless he gives good grades, neglect the course in which Clark works and cares more for his reputation and that of the school. That of his students, he is the principal. He opens the idea of Mr. Clark to remodel the room and asks him to do things the way they are told, which Mr. Clark doesn't pay much attention to. He also places the new rulers that will be in the classroom. Already on the third day, he arrives and he realizes that they have stained the walls of the living room and they have broken everything he had done. He remains firm in his decision and repines it and puts everything in its respective order. That someday he teach his students how to line up and asks the cooks not to give their students food until he arrives with them. Julio goes ahead and goes to ask for food, to which the cook replies that there is no food for his class, and returns to the line in that Jamaica sneaks in had the teacher tells him that they will not advance until she says the truth. After discussing the subject for a long time, Jamaica tells the truth and the class proceeds to it. After a few months, what seemed to be a normal day is would not been. He tried to each one of his classes. Jamaica becomes rebellious and Mr. Clark becomes very enraged, so much so that he shakes Jamaica's desk with hair in it and leather. He leaves the room with his belongings, which then his students celebrate. That someday he meets Marisa and asks her to show him New York, to which she agrees. Time passes and it starts to rain, so they take refuge under a small building and start talking. When he tells her about what happened at school, she catches his attention and tells him that the children, whether they want to or not, they need your help. The next day, Julio Vasquez tells everything to Mr. Turner, arriving at the classroom. They realize the teacher is correctly seated at his desk. So all his students are surprised because he returned, like the, like the director. Before starting the class, the teacher makes a proposal to the student, which is every day, 15 seconds, he will drink a box of chocolate milk and vomit if the students are silent. They agree to his proposal, paying attention to the class. The boys slowly begin to change their attitude, and Professor Clark begins to schedule study sessions with the students. On afternoon, he studies alongside Deshaun, who proves to be quite intelligent but prone to rage and complications as he finds a way to channel it. With Jamaica, he shows up at her house and helps her with her homework until her neighbor, who takes care of her siblings in her absence, shows up to drop off the children. Jamaica, with the need to prepare dinner, tells John that he will not be able to finish his homework, to which Professor Clark replies that he will make dinner. After a day of study, the mother comes home, exciting herself for Mr. Clark in her house and making him out of it. The next day, Jamaica's mother shows up at school feeling a complaint about Mr. Clark and his appearance at her house. Mr. Clark asks her to have faith in Jamaica. First, the mother denies it, but in the end, she accepts. One day, giving him a normal class, finds so an ambulance arrived to pick him up. After the incident, he turns out to have pneumonia, but decides to move on, and while his friend takes care of him, he teaches his students virtually. After a while, the day of the national exam arrives and the children, quite nervous, prepare to take it while the teachers of both classrooms are outside. To reward the boys for their studying, he invites them to a play that they all agreed to go. Deshaun, who was excited to go, returned to his adopted parents' house and paints graffiti on the wall. Unfortunately, He was a victim of family abuse, and his father beat him, making it impossible for him to go to the full function. Mr. Clark, when counting the children who were entering the function, realizes that Tenshawn is missing. So he decides to go looking for him and finds him quite injured and throw on garbage. Mr. Clark, willing to help him, calls the school principal, who later promises to resolve the Tenshawn's situation at the same time that he stays at the principal's house. After the exam, after a few weeks, Mr. Clark places a mannequin with the results. After giving his students a good score, he proceeds to give them the marks, which are quite positive and better than those of the privileged group. Finally, he gives medals to those who excelled in different fields, and his students rate him as the best teacher in the world. Alternative ending. As an alternate ending, it could have ended with Tenshawn telling Mr. Clark that he is abused. Then Mr. Clark would have called the police, and she would fail to remove the child from there, and then at a time that he was adopted by Mr. Clark or a better family.